Yay, we're live. Welcome, Nicole. I'm so excited we get to have this interview, this conversation about your love story. And um, everyone who's listening, Nicole is a super love client who, really went through the whole process, the transformation, made the choice for this. And it's really exciting to me to actually witness people going through this, obviously, and seeing them fall in love in the end, but also just to share what was happening along the way so that any of you out there who are feeling maybe defeated or hopeless or wondering if maybe you're not included in love somehow, which I know I felt like that, where I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to have to really make single work for me because it feels like it's not happening. That, there are there's magic that can happen, and you'll hear Nicole's story, but when you follow that desire in your heart, so much can change when you choose for you. So I'm so happy you're here, Nicole. Newly married. It's been 6 months, 4 months, 5 months. I can't do math like that, but I loved seeing your wedding pictures, and I'm really excited to share with everyone more about you. And introduce yourself and tell people, like, where you were at the beginning, how old you were, what was going on, what your dreams were, and your biggest challenges. So paint the picture of where this all started for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Macy. And I have your same hopes and desires too. And that's why I showed up today, is because I was in a really hopeless place. And I felt like, I remember just feeling like, what did I miss? Like, did they teach this in like school and I didn't get it? Or did they, like, I don't know, did I miss a gene? Like, what was it that like left me just sort of like in this vast wasteland of, I can't figure out love. I feel like I've spent a lot of time in like therapy and coaching and things, trying to understand myself better. And I felt like I was successful in lots of other places in my life. And this was like just a void for me. And it just felt like something like beating my head against a wall. I just couldn't figure it out. I think I would have described myself as one of those women who, I would have said kept attracting the wrong guy. Why do I always attract the wrong guy? Or I would have said, maybe I'm like too successful and guys are, intimidated by me. So those were a lot of the things I remember going through my head. And I think for me, the journey really began when I was like nearing 40. And, it felt like a milestone coming at me, like more like a train coming at me, right? Like, holy cow, I'm going to hit 40 and like still not have figured this out. And I started to just kind of think like, all right, maybe I just need to like give it up. Like maybe this just isn't meant for me. Like for some reason, I didn't get put on this earth to like be loved or have this romantic partner, even though that didn't feel right, because I desired
Yeah.
so much, like
Yeah.
so much. And so I thought, I remember times like just praying, like, God, take this like away from me, then take like the desire away. Uh,
Wow.
because if I could at least get that, like I won't be so devastated all the time. And so yeah, I think I found you in a really hopeless place. I think love had just gotten so confusing. It felt really hard. And I just wanted to like throw in the towel. That's how I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I can relate to all that. I feel like you just shared my story. The timing, the feelings of like, wow, I figured out a lot of things and yet this is not happening. And I know. I was looking around at all my friends, and I really was the only single person in
Mhm.
my friend group at that time,
Mhm.
especially with like all my college friends who were really tight.
Yeah. I
And
had
it's
friends
really
celebrating like
painful.
15, 20 years of marriage. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, they're having these like monumental milestones of weddings.
Wow. Yeah.
And they've got kids that are like in high school. And I'm like still over here like single gal. You know? So
Totally.
you just
Yeah.
started. I felt sometimes like maybe I haven't figured out like adulting like at all.
Mm.
You're not even an adult, kind of.
Which is
Um,
hilarious because you were like marketing executive and like doing all these
yeah,
cool
like I owned
things.
a house and I had like a good job. I was doing other adulting things, but it made me feel like I wasn't part of the adult world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's,
Yeah.
I mean, some of that is really like just the shaming that happens in our culture, unfortunately.
Hmm.
I don't think you have to be married to be somebody. Um,
Right.
and so, I struggled with that too, because I also kind of in my mind wanted to like, it was a little like F the man, where I was
Hmm. Yeah.
like, what? I mean, the thing is I still sort of believe that, but I also
Hmm.
realized, but I still wanted a partner. So
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't so much about like I have to get married or I have to follow the rules of society, but I definitely need a life partner. I want someone to go through this journey with.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the part that is really refreshing to like just own. When, for me, I had that desire too, but growing up in the generation I grew up in, it was like, oh, you got to be this powerful, independent woman and you can have it all. And with this subtext that was, oh, well, if you just want that MRS degree, they used to call it that in college, where
Mhm.
it's like, oh, are you getting the MRS degree where you're just there to meet a husband and then
Mhm.
call it quits and do the family thing, which I think is great. And it was such a like conflicting thing within my heart where I was like, yeah, I totally want a husband. I thought I wanted a family then. By the time I actually gave it my attention and actually listened to my heart, the kid ship had sailed. I mean, I was over 40 at that point.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a really cool acknowledgement you're making about how we're getting all these mixed messages.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think that it inherently somehow still, even though women are so much more successful and marriage is not the only way we can be successful anymore, we're still living that the baggage of that.
Hmm.
That somehow that defines our worth.
Yeah.
And I think that was, to me, that was one of the key pieces that you and I worked on together,
Yes.
letting go of some of that, that my worth wasn't revolving around whether or not I had someone in my life. Because I
Hmm.
think that's why I was working so hard at trying to achieve it,
Hmm.
because it was like I needed to prove to the rest of the world that I wasn't a loser and that I had value. And I had one of the first steps, I think, for me was just letting go of that and just
Yes.
I'm not gonna play that game. I'm just not gonna do it. And that just brought this like profound relief uh,
Hmm.
to me. So that was one thing that I think really helped.
I love that. Well, in our work together, I mean, in and super loved, if people are listening and they don't know this, some of the transformational pieces are not, this isn't just like talking our way and cheerleading our way through it. It's really about going deep into that subconscious space. And one of the tools I like to use with people is regenerating images and memory, which you and I did that, but also there's a lot of consciousness tools that help really change these things at the core, because like you said, this is programming and conditioning
Mhm.
that has been passed on through generations, like cellularly, but
Mhm.
also, we're growing up and collecting all these beliefs, whether we know we're buying them or not. We are, when we continue to find ourselves not being able to create what we want in a relationship or feeling shame about it or whatever. What would you say were some of your big ahas, your big breakthroughs in this work?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying all that too, because I feel like, I was a voracious consumer of like the top 10 ways to find the guy and
Mhm.
why are you struggling so hard with not, finding the man and like how to rewrite your online dating profile to, so I was like
Mhm.
constantly like reading all this stuff and trying to figure it out and try to like game the system. And so yeah, dropping the game and just getting out of the system was kind of my first step. Um, yeah, I fully experienced what you just talked about, which was we did like the deeper work, like what is actually holding you back.
Mhm.
I remember one thing we did that has just stuck with me so much is you said, look, I'm gonna give you one assignment and just drop everything. I just want you to spend the next 3 days just looking for signs of love in the world anywhere. And I remember I remember picking up a rock that was shaped like a heart. I remember like witnessing like it was fall at the time, and so all the leaves were falling, and this old couple was walking down the street holding hands. I remember that weekend I saw my niece, and she just came up and loved me and hugged on me, and I just thought, gosh, I have forgotten. I have like been fighting love so much that I've forgotten it's everywhere. That
Mhm.
I already have so much access to love. Um,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, like just doing that small thing just shifted my consciousness into like, what do I see in the world? I was seeing men as almost like my adversary. I was seeing, love as this thing I couldn't obtain. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, that just was an aha of opening my eyes to the fact that love was so abundant and
Yeah.
so prevalent. And it just, I don't know, that was a big shift that happened to me early on. Um, I think some other aha moments, that we went through, kind of got myself into a better place where I felt like I was a lot more able to be vulnerable and be open to love. And I did find someone who I dated for almost a year and a half, which was the longest relationship I had ever had. Um, and it ended up being kind of a toxic relationship. And I came back to you. I've done the pregnant,
Mhm.
everybody, because I was like, I really felt defeated after that.
Mhm.
I thought, well, damn it. Like I did all the work and like I found
Yeah.
the guy and he wasn't the right guy. Like, what did I do wrong again? And that was my mentality. What did I do wrong? And so kind of that next big aha moment was like, it wasn't about doing wrong. It was about, I had more to learn. Um,
Mhm.
for me, it was healing some of the wounds that I grew up with.
Yep.
Um, I was kind of recreating the relationship my parents had without my knowledge,
Mhm.
which was a pretty chaotic relationship growing up. And so, it was funny because I went into that relationship, and I think what I learned that you and I kind of learned together was I went into that relationship thinking, well, I know how to deal with this kind of a guy. I got this because I was repeating the pattern that I saw my parents play out, even though I didn't want that. And
Mhm.
so that was a big key. I think walking away from that and the work we did post that, kind of just dissecting some of that. We did some like intergenerational healing,
Yes.
super woo woo out there. And like, I'm not
Yeah.
like, I'm a pretty practical person. Like some of the super woo woo stuff we did, I was freaked out by in the beginning. And it ended up being the things that just dramatically made big changes for me. Um,
Yeah.
like opening myself to just things that I never thought of. And so I just realized there was a lot of healing that had to be done there. And it just put me back on solid ground. And I remember kind of going into the dating experience after that and thinking, I felt supported. I felt supported by the universe. I felt like things were healed and that I was going to find somebody. I felt most hopeful I'd ever felt. Um, and we worked on things like creating space for him to come in. Uh,
Yes.
like a big thing for me. I mean, I remember like this is so silly, but I have like told this to so many friends and it has worked. You made me get a second um, nightstand by my bed.
Yes.
I had one for me in my bed. You were like, well, what's he going to use? And I was like, I don't know. And so you were like, get him a nightstand. And I thought, that's insane, Macy. And yet, like, there was something about that. I think I created like a drawer for him in the bathroom that was empty.
Yes. It's the
Um,
feng shui of
yeah,
love. Yeah.
this idea of just like, you need to call him in. Like, I remember you saying that to me a lot. Like, he needs to know you're ready and you're available, because you are, but you need to start signaling to the to the powers and the energy out there that that's there. And I know, again, that sounds crazy and it sounds woo woo and it sounds all out there, but it changed my mindset. It changed how I showed up, I think, in the world, because I
Yes.
knew somebody was coming for me. I just knew it, and I let go finally of it has to happen on this timeline and this moment, and I have to have it this way. I just said, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be me, and I'm just going to see what comes. And it made it easier for me to say no
Mm-hmm.
after that too. When guys would come, that I was like, mm-mm. Like I just would be, I could be like, all right, nope, not for me, move on. And great, glad I figured it out quickly. So I was able to just have that confidence of not that scarcity mindset of like, well, I don't know, should I give him another chance? Should I go on another date with him even though I feel nothing, or whatever. I just was like, no, I don't do that anymore. I
Yeah.
I just say thank you and I move on. And the more that I am able to kind of like, I want to say it in like a nicer way, but like weed out. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that like
Well,
in
I
a
think it's an honoring of you, because when you're
yeah.
doing that, I mean, the energy is a thing,
Mhm.
energy's our first language. So all of this stuff there's a lot of energetics that, are happening. And when you have the sense or you see that they don't have the same values,
Mhm.
then absolutely honoring you is a huge part of this.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like, instead of me trying to like fit and mold and squeeze and get smaller or bigger or whatever they wanted me to be, I was like, they don't fit. And if
Yeah.
they don't fit, like they need to move on too, because I want to
Yeah.
take them well on their journey too, but they're not my fit. And I think I felt like the more I did that, the more, it drew me closer to the person that was right. Um,
Yeah.
it was kind of like I think for the first time in my life, I was powerfully sending a message out into the world of like what I actually wanted. Um,
Mhm.
and I hadn't done that before. It had always been about what I thought I had to be for someone
Right.
to love me.
Right. Yeah, that was a big shift for me too. I think
Mhm.
that is really amazing how so many women have that default. The default to like, okay, well, what's going to make someone like me? Like, what do I have to be to make someone like me? And it's like, no, I mean, you're the chooser. You're the one who knows. You're the one who got the divine like message from beyond that I would like to share my life with someone. I mean, you're getting that.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. It's like honoring that. Yeah.
I'm curious with the relationship that happened first, because
Mhm.
like, when you look back, do you see how like there were positive contributions in that experience that helped you receive your husband now?
Oh, for sure. I definitely think that there were ways of my being that I noticed throughout the relationship, right? Like I was
Mhm.
finally able, like I kept thinking to myself, like, gosh, you're really able to be open and you're trying to have honest conversations and you're, wanting to really build a life with this person. And, these are the things you value, because we were incompatible, like there was a lot to be
Mhm.
able to see that like wasn't right. And I remember like one of the exercises that you and I did in the beginning was kind of writing. We kind of pulled from some stuff that you and I had done, and I made this real colorful chart of like all the things I wanted in a relationship.
Mhm.
I look back on that now, and they were simple words, and they were kind of generic. And then we did the same exercise the second time, and it's like this like in-depth writing, where I was like, oh, I mean, you can just see the clarity that I got
Mhm.
from the first relationship, out of the first relationship of like, oh no, now I'm real clear what that means. And I
Yeah.
write a paragraph about it instead of a word. Because
Yeah, it takes a minute sometimes. I mean, I had a similar experience in that I had a relationship before I met Larry that
Mhm.
I really was excited about when I first met this guy. I was really excited about him, And I remember thinking, like, I mean, I didn't remember consciously ignoring some of the things that weren't matched,
Mhm.
but now I can see it,
Mhm.
hindsight.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and when that ended, I was really devastated. But I actually was working with a coach at that time, and she said, "Well, I'm noticing some of the things you're talking about where, he's missing some of the things that you seem to require, like the spiritual foundation, and he didn't really believe in that, but he had all these other things that I was so enamored with, and it just felt like, um I don't know, it felt like it gave me hope and
Mhm.
stretched me to a place of, because he still was something higher than I had before, yet missing some big things. And it was
Mhm.
cool to see how, well, he broke up with me, so it wasn't even like I had anything to do to get rid of him.
Mhm.
Um, but then I was able to see, wow, how, actually being able to ask for everything I wanted was a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. I can fully relate to that because I do think I think the first, again for me, and I don't know if other people will have experienced this, but this was the first time that I had been really open and vulnerable um and just felt that way in a relationship before. Other my relationships had been 3 months, 6 months, but very,
Right.
I was very closed off. I look back on those relationships and I was like, oh, I can't even I didn't even feel like a relationship now that I know what it is. But so I think it was just like so exciting that first relationship because I was like, wow, look at me. Like I can be vulnerable and I can actually feel like I have an adult relationship for the first time in my life. And so I think looking back on it, was more caught up in that. And I wasn't as concerned about him in the beginning, because
Yeah.
I was like so fired up in the way I was feeling and that I was like actually doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then all of a sudden I turn around and I'm like, oh, wait, hang on though. This is not actually working. And then I, tried to force fit it for many months.
Mhm.
And I was getting increasingly unhappy.
Mhm.
And finding myself, going back to that. And I just finally realized and it was scary because at the time then I think I was like 41 and I was thinking like, well, I mean, I don't know that I was consciously thinking this, but now that should I just settle for it? Like, is it good enough? I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and and then something in me just said, you haven't come this far. Like, come on, girl. Like, you have not made it to 41 without finding this person. And then now you're going to settle, So I just, that part of me, I think was the bravest thing I've ever done was like walking away
Yep.
from that. It just, and I didn't feel brave at the time. I feel like I ran with my tail between my legs and I, um, grieved it for a long time. And the reason I came back to you is because I couldn't let it go.
Mhm.
I couldn't let go of the fact that I think I'd made a mistake. Even though
Well,
I
that's huge, Nicole. I think we need to highlight that for everyone because I think that the misunderstanding that can come from some of this stuff is that, wow, I should know ahead of time, or like, why didn't I know? Why did I pick him in the first place? Or why didn't I break up with him earlier? Or like all of these things. But that's not what's happening when you're in the experience. In the experience, you're going, okay, like what can we change here? What can we create here? And so for anyone listening, don't let this be something where you're like, oh, I better get it right as soon as I meet them on a first date. Like it's never going to be that. You know when you know, and I know you had deep conversations with that person and that allowed you to develop more of your communication skills and intimacy skills and vulnerability skills that I'm guessing are really powerful here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I learned a ton in that relationship.
Yeah.
And I once I got out of just the pain of losing the relationship, I was able to see that. It was
Yeah.
hard to see that in the pain.
Yes.
It felt like failure. It felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here again. Like, I had
Yeah.
all those feelings. And really, again, that's why I came back to work with you, because I felt stuck again. I felt like I wasn't moving past it, and I needed to. So,
Yep. And I love that when you're ready for the next level growth and you got it.
mhm,
Which is great because you have to make a choice for that. I mean,
mhm,
really, when we're in those places, it's like making the choice for greater. Sometimes that choice takes
mhm,
some courage
mhm.
and a willingness to invest in ourselves and our growth. So
And I think,
how
I heard
yeah,
somebody talking the other day about, I was listening to some podcast and I can't even remember to give them credit, but they were talking about how, love is natural. Like, love is something we can all do, but dating is not. Dating
yeah,
is actually a pretty new phenomenon. And I was like, kind of is. Like, because if you think about the institution of marriage, it was for a long time a necessary institution in terms of
yes.
women had no other choice. And so dating and trying to like figure out how to like find this emotional partner and all this kind of stuff is very like new to us. And
Yeah,
so,
it's different now.
yeah. And so it was kind of this idea of like, there is a reason why sometimes we need help. 'Cause I
Mhm.
think there's a stigma to that too, of like, well, I don't need help with dating. I should be able to figure that out.
Exactly.
It's
I
like,
mean,
like nobody knows how to do it,
I think it is definitely a skill, and I think it's also people certainly people who are coming to Super Loved, we want something greater. We want that
Mhm.
spiritual, soulful, connected thing. We're not just wanting, a hardy man to breed a bunch of kids so that we can keep our farm going. I mean, that's the way it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I love honoring that. It's so true. I do think that the stigma of I mean, I've had women say this. It's like, "Oh, wow, I went to law school. I did this." And like, shouldn't I just know? I mean,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one else needed help. Or there's also this idea that everyone else is just having it so easy.
Yeah.
And that's never the case.
Yeah.
I mean, when we see the world and the statistics of, 50% of all marriages fail, it's like, you know what? It might be nice to have some skills,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
couple
And, there's
skills.
a lot of people unhappy in their marriages. And there's also like a lot of people who don't want more, right? Like there are
Yeah.
people who are happy with just, like just kind of coexisting with somebody. And I just knew that's not what I wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're right too, is that I think sometimes people that come to you, and I know for myself, I wanted something amazing.
Yeah.
I knew in my heart I wanted it. I was scared to death of it, but I knew I wanted it. And so I
Yeah.
needed to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, and we don't need to suffer. We don't need to deprive ourselves or just tolerate being miserable. Like we get to change that. If people don't, I mean, it's a choice to
Mhm.
create something different.
Yeah.
So tell us, so excited for you to share like the moment and your love story and what's it like to be able to actually have your phenomenal person and tell us about him and you and your wedding and everything you want to say.
Yeah, I started the year I started this, I had set up like my online you and I had gone through the program, and then I reset up my online profile at the beginning of the year, like in January. And I bought a whole year with the thing. And I thought, I'm going to just date for the whole year. I'm not going to be concerned about who I meet or when I meet. I'm just here to date. I'm here to just put myself out there and learn how to say no and learn to ask for what I want. And I will tell you, I went on some of the most horrendous dates of my life in those first few months. I mean, it was like, be careful what you ask for, right? Like, okay, I want to learn and grow. Like, they were like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I got guys, I mean, men who were just like horribly mean, and like I would have to block on my phone, and just,
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? Um, but I really took it with stride, because I was like, every time that would happen, I'd be like, man, thank God that like I saw it so fast this time.
Yeah.
It wasn't the relationship I got into before, where I ignored all the signals and just kind
Mhm.
of let, like excused bad behavior. This time I was like, oh no, that's poor behavior. We're out. Because if you're
Mhm.
acting like that after our first date, it's probably not going to get better.
Right.
Right. So it was this crazy, like weird place because I was like all committed and all ready and it was horrible. But I was like happy in the horribleness for some weird reason.
Yeah.
I kept saying, this is learning, this is learning, this is growth. And I am getting rid of the ones that are not right for me. And then the first date, went on, and it was funny because when I remember online when I saw the man who's now my husband, I was kind of like, oh, he lives like far away, and like obviously finding all the things, like I don't know, but I was like, whatever, I'll go on a date with him, and we just had such a great first date. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
easy. We were just talking and laughing. We ended up going like a little walk and getting some ice cream after our lunch. And it was just this kind of, I don't know, there was just such an ease to it.
Yeah.
I felt I felt good the whole time. I also like
Mm.
really like into that. You and I had worked a lot on that. Like, how do you feel in the date? Don't
Mhm.
be worried about like trying to be, interesting to him or anything. You just focus the whole time on how do you feel? What are you picking up? What's happening in your body? And that I just felt this calm and this peace with him. And I left there thinking, that's the kind of a guy you'd want to marry. Not
Yeah.
like I didn't know him well enough to think like he's the guy that I'm gonna marry, but I just thought like that's the kind of guy. Like that's more of what I'm looking for, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of, just went from there. It's like the cliche, like it's when it's easy, that's right. And I was always so annoyed when people would tell me that. But that's exactly how it was. Like
Yeah.
it was just easy and we from that date forward, I mean, that was it. I mean, we just kind of kept going and everything was really natural. He, I mean, okay. And again, like, red flags come up. He had just gotten divorced after being married for like 20 years.
Wow.
Not like, he had kids. Yeah. I mean, these were all the things like, these weren't the things on my list,
Yeah.
but I could tell the way he talked about himself and his relationship that he had done healing work himself, that he had figured out how he had played a role in the end of his marriage. And that made me feel very safe. With
Mm.
knew there were a lot of people that I would date that were divorced that would, it was a lot of blaming, they would just
Mhm.
deface their exes and just, push everything back on them. And I'm like, I don't feel like this person's done any work. So that felt good. And yeah, we within like a year, moved in together. We navigated COVID together. It was the pandemic and all of that stuff happened. We had to navigate having kids at home, and how did that look? And he has an ex-wife that lives a mile away, and so there was nothing that was easy about it. Again,
Right.
I don't know that was the easy situation I would have picked, but we navigated it together very well. And that was kind of the thing that I loved the most about him was just he was just always willing to like have the conversation and talk about things and work through things and make decisions together and plan our lives purposefully. Um,
Yeah.
and so even when we decided to get married, I mean, he was like kind of talking about like, should we look for a ring? How do you want to do this? What are we doing? And I said, let's go pick it out together. I said, everything we've done in our relationship has been you and I figuring it out together. And I don't want you to go find some ring and get on one knee and this has to be all you. And that's just not how we operate. We've always,
Oh, wow.
for us, that's just what we did. We ended up going together and buying the rings and, so we don't have the big, engagement story. But it's ours,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense for us. And then we tried to figure out how to have a wedding in COVID, and that kept, still going on. And so we got lucky. We were prior to the Omicron wave, and had a wedding in November that went off without a hitch, and had all of our close friends and family there, and it was the perfect weekend. And and my life has changed dramatically since then. Like he's opened up doors and opportunities for me that I didn't know. And I mean, that to me is part of having a partner, right? Is is that now I have somebody to do life with. And so some of the, I've gone back to grad school, some of the hard things that would have been really hard on my own. He's just sort of like been my support system through. Obviously, navigating the world in the last couple of years, it's been nice to have somebody to come home to and talk to about all the things that we're all struggling with. And he and I just talk a lot, and that is wonderful for me. We can talk about anything. We've had hard moments where we've had to like have hard discussions about things, and we're not fighters. We don't yell and scream at each other. We just sit down and talk, and we figure out how to say what we need, and here's the things I need, and how can you meet that need in some way. And he's just he's more than I could have ever imagined.
I love that.
It's not the relationship I imagined. It's bigger than that. And it just feels so good to have a support system and just another person to walk through life with. We both had really hard weeks this week, and he came home yesterday, and I was like in the backyard just like laying with my I need some sun or something, and he came home and he was like, let's go walk and grab some dinner. And we walked and grabbed dinner, and on the way home he was like, it's just so nice to like have a person to just blow off the day with.
Oh man,
It's just, I find
that's so touching.
I just find that all these little simple things are what helps me,
Yeah.
And so that's just a little text that we'll send each other, or some days he knows I'm struggling, he'll leave me a little note before he leaves. Just like, have a good day. It's just caring for one another. And I don't know that I would have been able to love somebody this deeply had I not done a lot of work on really learning my own value and my own worth before that. So, because I would have had a really hard time accepting his love.
Wow. Yeah.
And I tell him that all the time. I'm like, oh, glad, glad we met when we met, because 5 years ago, you would have scared me to death.
Yes.
You would have been way too nice to me for me to accept that was okay. I would have thought you were crazy to think that that was great.
Oh my God. I love it when people say that. Where it's like, okay, you can see how the evolution, the inner work has brought you to a place where you could recognize each other.
Yeah.
And receive each other.
That's it. Yeah. I really
amazing.
When you talk about it being magic, I think that's the magic.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
people will, you'll read these articles all the time online, or people talk about you can't love somebody until you love yourself. And, it's gotten really become this adage in our society. And I think the way people describe it makes it just sound kind of like, I don't know, like you're doing something wrong, so you better fix it. And that's not really what it is. I think you can love anybody. I think it's about the depth and the capacity of your ability to love. And mine has grown. My capacity to love has grown because I don't spend all my time hating myself. And
right.
So then it's almost like it spills out of me, because I'm giving myself a lot of love. And so then it just naturally spills out into the world and other people and into my partner. And that's the way I kind of see that, so.
Yeah. I love it. It's so beautiful. I mean, you two are a really amazing example of actual co-creating together, co-creating the relationship and letting yourself have your special thing. And, a lot of people would be like, well, oh, he said, let's go get an engagement ring, or we're doing it together, that, and make it so wrong, or like, oh, maybe there's something. But it's like really being able to celebrate what you create, and the health and the wealth and the happiness and the relaxation that comes from all of that support together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like feeling your way through it, because I think, again, all the messaging you get from your family or the world or whatever of like how a relationship should look and what you should do and how you should behave and what, all these things you should have. And I just, again, was like, we're not going to do that.
Right.
We're not
I
going to
love
follow
it.
the system. We're going to do this our way.
Yep.
And we have that choice, and that's empowering.
So
Um,
empowering.
and to find a partner that will do that with you. That's kind of like, yeah, let's just build it. Let's figure it out. And we're still figuring it out. I mean, we have to, we have to navigate new things all the time. So we're
Yeah.
trying to do that. So,
It continues. I mean, Larry and I will be celebrating 10 years this August. And it's like,
congrats.
well,
Yeah.
first of all, how did that happen?
Right.
Like, so fast. And
Yeah.
then just noticing, I mean, every day I see new things, it seems
Mhm.
like. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
seeing him evolve and grow into his own genius even more. And it's just so cool having a person. And I'm so happy for you guys. And you're the cutest couple ever, too, which is unbelievably cute, how cute you guys are. And I'm so happy that you shared so intimately your journey. And I know that your story, that this interview is going to create a zillion other love stories. How
That
does
would
it
be
get any
amazing.
better than this, really?
That would be amazing. Yeah.
And so what would you tell someone who's on the fence, who's like, "Oh, I should know this. Wait, should I do that? Oh, should I invest money in myself?" Like any of that, what would you tell them?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess again, it depends on what you're struggling with. If you're struggling with the like idea of like it feels weird to spend money on like figuring out how to date and find love, which trust me, I definitely felt that. I just tell myself, well, I spend money on all kinds of other things to make myself better. I buy self-help books, and I go buy a gym membership, and I buy makeup, and I buy clothes, and like I'm constantly spending money on things that I'm doing to try to improve my situation in life, and get the things I want out of life. And so I just had to like, I would say like just see if you can shift your mindset a little bit on that, right? And just kind of know that it's just like anything else, that you're investing in,
Yeah.
and you'll never miss the money. I don't
I
even.
know, I was
I
gonna say, could
literally
you
can't
put a
tell you.
price on
I
your
can't.
relationship?
No, I can't even tell you how much I paid you. I have zero idea, like
But,
zero
like,
idea.
with him,
Because it didn't matter, like because that wasn't in the end. It was, the money you worry about is the money where you spend it and you're like, oh, that was so not worth it.
mhm,
Like I'm pissed that I spent that money. I'm like, I don't even know how much it was because I would have spent 10 times more to get
a moped.
what
No,
I
I'm just kidding.
wanted. Yeah, yeah, but so it's like, in the end, that did not. Um, it's always a little painful to like let go of money, but in the end, it just, I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I think of Larry as, like, my $1,000,000 lottery. Like, I can't imagine life without having a person.
yeah, 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 and I think too, it's like sometimes like it's like giving a little of yourself, you just get back so much more, right? And so that's how I kind of saw it. I mean, I think if people are struggling with like the stigma of, I shouldn't need this, I should be able to figure this out on my own. The question I'd ask, is just how's that worked out for you so far, right?
Yeah,
That's the
that's a
question to
hard
ask yourself. Like, it was like, well, that doesn't seem to be working. So,
one.
and it's like use it as an experiment, right? I mean, we experiment with lots of things, um, and you pushed me in ways that I would never have pushed myself. It's kind of like going to like, it's the reason you go to a personal trainer or you go to a workout class, because I would never do that to myself if someone did not push me. Right.
Oh god, no.
So
Yeah.
it's that same thing. It's like sometimes you just need somebody to kind of, get in there and help you through those things that you're just having a hard time doing yourself. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I would just yeah, I don't think it's like I don't think it's like miracle. Like it's not a miracle thing. Like it's not like a, oh my gosh, like if I do this, everything's going to turn out fine. Cause that's not what happened for me. You know, like
Mhm.
I did this and like something happened and then something else happened and it was a journey.
Yeah.
You know, this is not an instant gratification.
It's not a magic pill.
Not a
Yeah.
magic pill. There is nothing like that. But it, but I think you can be what you were for me was somebody who could go on the journey with me, and make me not feel so alone,
Mhm.
and uh, and give me some hope when I didn't
Yeah.
have it.
When you
So
don't feel alone, then guess what? You're open to a person coming in. If you
yeah,
feel alone, then you kinda stay alone. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of an interesting self-fulfilling thing.
yeah.
So, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was so great. I
Same.
appreciate you and anyone out there, if you are, really ready to change your inner world so that you can receive phenomenal love,
Mhm.
then this is an opportunity to talk about that and see what we can change together. So, message me and we'll have a chat. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.